So I guess the first question is, how many of you have either read The Economist or used PayPal or used a Scotts Miracle-Gro product or service? Any of those? Everybody?
There we go.
Okay. So that means you're in the right room. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're really excited. I'm going to ask everyone to just give a little bit about who you are and what you do at your companies.
I'm Dave Peck with PayPal. I head up social media and influencer marketing. So, yeah.
Great.
Kip Edwardson, I'm with Scotts, Director of Digital Marketing. And so I oversee pretty much everything in digital, from social to influencer to content, mobile, all the website development, apps, et cetera.
So my name is Heather Taylor. I work for The Economist. I am the Director of Content Strategy for North America, and I work on content solutions, so brands and agencies come to us to make content for them.
So really interesting, with two brands and a publisher. So we're going to divide the conversation up and try to find the common bonds between a brand and a publisher. And I think what you'll hear is there's a lot of things that are relevant between the two, and also especially for all of you creators out there. So the first thing is, brands are clearly in the content game. Content's been around a long time. Why is this notion of brands and content marketing and creators so hot right now?
I guess I'll start. So why is it hot now? One of the reasons is the content creators have the communities. They're already engaged with their audience. I mean, why in the world would you follow PayPal on social, on Instagram? You're only reaching out to us if you have a problem. Mm-hmm. I can push all the content in the world and you probably won't see it because you're upset or you don't think about PayPal. And so going somewhere where there's an engaging community and there's fun content and things happening, that's where we want to be. And it's easier than creating our own is to go somewhere where the creators are and they have their own communities.
I would add to that, they've always said content is king, and no one goes online to read code, and no one goes online to see ads. And so content is a lot about, relevancy, right place, right time. And so, I mean, there's so many ways of content, and so many people have become content creators. And the platforms that are available, whether it be the social platforms or even content management systems that have made it very easy to publish content, like a WordPress, et cetera, are making it so that there's just a plethora of content out there, and working hard at it, doing it right is where the rubber meets the road.
It's really interesting, because I think that what we're looking for from content is really shifting. It's not shifting, it's just we're more aware of what people want. So we did a study recently in business leaders. 73% of them are like, yeah, if a piece of content is too salesy, I'm totally turned off. But 93% of marketers connect their content to a product or a service. So that's a huge disconnect. So often I feel like brands will go to content creators that have their own audience, have their own kind of voice, and similar to coming to The Economist, because they know they're going to reach their audience in a more kind of unique way, a more tailored way. They're going to be more connected with their audience that doesn't connect to sale or a product, but actually looks at ideas.
And I was just going to add in, hopefully, and those creators are telling a true story, hopefully, an honest story. They're not only a user, and they're evangelizing, right? In some ways, they tell the story better than we tell our own story.
So Heather, in a way, you are the influencer, you are the creator for the brands that are coming to you. So when a brand comes to you from a publisher's perspective, who's creating the content? How do you work with brands? What's the relationship like with them?
So when a brand or an agency comes to us with a problem that they want us to solve, we really kind of look at what they're really looking to do. So often they're looking to us for our editorial voice, our kind of third-party credibility, the research that we create. But in doing so, we have editorial independence. So we're actually creating content that they can reference, and they can get credibility with that. So it's like standing beside our brand. But in saying that, they can't actually influence the content itself. So when we do a piece of research, the research is what the research is. We don't then go, oh, well, that little part doesn't really play well with that brand. We're like, no, that's what it is. So because of our editorial independence, because of the brand that we want to keep, and I think that's really important to you, keep sight on what your brand is. That's what keeps us credible and keeps our content credible. If we went and just basically said, yeah, we'll do whatever content you want in whatever way you want, our brand gets tarnished. So that's not something that we want to avoid at all costs.
Kip, where is most of your content coming from?
It comes from everywhere. I mean, we have an in-house team that works with us, and they've developed their own partner network that they writers, videographers, photographers, et cetera, that they work with. And so that's the primary source of it. But then we work with publishers too, which is interesting nowadays. You see between brands and agencies and publishers, these publishers, like, they've been creating content and they're saying, hey, why don't we open this studio up to create other content that can be relevant for our advertisers, if you will, in a way that, like, you see, like, the native content, the branded content plays and stuff that are becoming more and more popular because it's getting relevant content in front of an audience that is beating the pants off of anything you could do with, like, banner ads or other interstitials or pre-rolls or things like that. So I think that's where I mean, that's the trend and where things are moving, and you're seeing a lot more of those partnerships.
Yeah, and I think in our partnerships, we also create branded content that lives beside our research so that our clients do have a voice. So these brands have a voice beside it, but it's all kind of tying back to something that really gives them that thought leadership position.
I want to go back to something you said earlier that you brushed over, but I think was really important, how the creators keep their voice, things like that. I don't want to work with a creator who's going to say what I want them to say. Why am I doing this? I can do this in-house, make my own videos, make my own pictures. It defeats the whole purpose if they're talking like me, acting like me. I want your sense of humor. I want your take on the world. Most likely, most of you have tons of followers or fans or likes, whatever you want to call it, and you're there because you've got an edge, a different take on something. You're hooked while you're pushing the envelope. As a brand, I don't have permission really to push the envelope or be funny all the time. You do, and that's why I want to work with you.
Yeah, we did.
I think that's really important.
We did some advertising with one of our brands. I won't say which one, but because I don't want them to be mad at me, but it was meant to be funny. And I said, this isn't really that funny, if you ask me. Like, an agency wrote this. You want to be funny, get a comedy writer. And we turned around and did some stuff with The Onion, and it was hilarious. And so you got to go to the source that's going to do it well.
Right, Dave, you probably more than the others rely more on influencers.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to a lot of you, for the past day or so, and said, what would be important for you guys to learn from these speakers? One of the things that came back to me was, from a creator standpoint, you want brands to tell you what is within acceptability. So what parameters specifically do you give? I know you said you try to keep it open, but how do you help creators understand where the line is drawn and legal things and disclosure and all that?
So usually what we'll do, the process, once we come to an agreement with a creator, I'll ask that they take 20 minutes, not even a half hour, get on the phone with someone from our PR department. The PR person will actually do the pitch, and I try to work with someone on my team who's not so straight and narrow, gets it, and walk you through some of the high points. Here's some things we want you to think about. And a lot of time the creators will be like, I didn't realize I could do that with PayPal. A great example, we worked with a young lady named Tiffany Ma, who's a YouTuber, and we said, yeah, you could split the rent with your roommate. I never thought of that. So she worked that into her video, and all the comments were, I never thought of, that's a great idea. So giving them that sort of take, and I want the creators to do what they do, and I've probably picked that creator because I like their messaging. I like, maybe they're not so far left or far right on a subject, so I feel safe. So the gray area in between those two, I'm already comfortable with, right? But, at the end of the day, some obvious ones, language, derogatory comments, not gonna work. If you wouldn't say it to your mom, I don't want it on video and on PayPal's name associated with it.
So the theme of our panel is return on content. So let's talk a bit about measurement. I mean, clearly metrics can vary greatly depending on your objectives. There is not one silver bullet of what makes something successful. But overall, are there metrics, let's start with Heather, that you consistently value more than others, or that your brands are really looking to achieve with sponsored content on The Economist?
I think we always have to be very clear about what goals you want to achieve with our content. So often, I think people want one piece of content to do all things, and it doesn't work that way. It's not one thing for all things. So we look at, are you looking for reach? Are you looking for volume? So are you looking to be the loudest voice? And then we have metrics accordingly that look at views and shares and clicks and visitors, right? So unique visitors. So we want to see how far your reach can go. But then a lot of times it's actually about engagement. So are we building relationships? Are we connecting you to other people? So then we're looking at, well, is there a bounce rate? What are the video plays? Repeat visits, numbers of views, numbers of interactions. And that's really key. But then we also are used for lead generation sometimes. So we want to elicit the hand raisers, the people who say, yes, I want to take part in what you're saying, what you're doing. And then we're looking at downloads, you're looking at conversions, you're looking at those kind of numbers. And so we really want to be clear the moment someone comes to us and says, we want to solve this specific problem. And we're like, okay, let's get to the nuts and bolts of it. Like, what is going to be success for you? If you woke up tomorrow and said, my God, this was so successful, what would that be? And so we try to make sure from the get-go that we're really clear on what those metrics are with them, what KPIs are, those key performance indicators, because if they come and say, we want great reach, and then a week later they're like, why don't I have sales? Where's my leads? And you're like, well, that's not the point of the program that we've created, because you create your content, you create your program specifically to have the metrics in mind. So I think that's really key.
Said it very well. You just need to be specific and set your objectives from the beginning. I often make sure that it's written in the brief to be very specific. The analogy I always give people is, if I tell you that we're going to take a trip to California and you need to plan it, you're going to ask a bunch of questions. Well, how many people are coming? When do we need to be there? You're not just going to go out and get a bus, right? And well, it's only 2 of us, and I wanted to drive and see the whole country. Like, you need more specifics. The more specific you can be, the more we understand what we're going to measure.
I could talk for an hour on this, and they hit some good stuff. I think you said something which was really important in the brief, which sounds really scary and really bad, and I hate briefs, hate them. But at the end of the day, they're the most important thing. So
You like boxers?
What?
You like boxers instead of briefs?
I have to pick one of those, so there's not a third option? So, and Heather touched on it too, the KPI, the key report. So I try to keep it down to 3, and I keep them in order. So I'm doing our team in phases right now. So we started with impressions. We can do impressions all day long. I can do views in my sleep, upside down, one hand on the ground, and breakdancing, right? So I can't breakdance. Though I did pretty well with Kung Fu, the guy yesterday.
I want to see some breakdancing
Anyway,
at the
I
end.
digress. So we moved on to engagement now. That's my true KPI, and people will come back on the team. Why nobody saw the video? I don't care if anybody sees the video. If I've got comments, if I've got shares, if I got likes, that's what I'm looking for. That's right. And then another thing you touched on about sales, we're not there. We're starting down the funnel. If you guys know what the funnel is, we're at consideration. I just want you to think about PayPal, right? I see another brand, credit card to my left button I can check out with. To the right, I see PayPal. I might use, I'm going this way, but you considered us. Mm-hmm. So that's where we are, and that's what I want the content creators to help with, right? Top of mind, fun things like that. Always do a brief. I know it's awful, but knowing what the goal is when the brand comes back to you. So if we work together and we can't go, we hired you for impressions. Why'd you get no likes?
It protects.
And you'll be like, yeah, it's your.
It protects you. It's like a contract.
It's like a contract. It's your armor. That would be a piece of advice I would give to all content creators.
Why didn't you do this? Well, because
people are going to
put it in the brief
and call you out.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. People on my team, I'll be like, "Where's the brief? We didn't do one." Well, that's not the creator's fault. That's your fault.
Yeah,
so.
and audience actually is really key, because often it's kind of becomes this generic pocket of audience, and that's not going to be really suitable for you. So we'll get, because we're at the Economist, we're business decision makers, and so they'll go, business decision makers. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of different types of business decision makers, I like to point out. So it's really being specific, because if you're not specific, we can't actually help you, because it becomes this kind of watered down pool. So if you're going to tell us that actually, I really want to reach, I'm going to go more economisty here, CFOs in the healthcare industry. I'm going to create very different content. I'm going to be much more focused on a kind of different needs for that group than I would if it's just a generic business decision maker audience. So the same thing for you. Sometimes people come to us and want to reach an audience that we don't necessarily have the best audience for. So then we have to look at different elements, or sometimes say, this is just not going to be a good partnership. So I think that's important, understanding I know who I reach, and I know specifically what we can do. So let's make sure our partnerships allow us to be the most successful in that.
Yeah.
not to go on too long here, but a real tangible example that I can give is we sponsor something called Outside Lands in the Bay Area. It's a huge, like Bonnaroo, a huge music festival. I wanted to launch Snapchat. I hired a Snapchatter. I won't even get how hard it is to measure Snapchat. Forget that. At the end of the day, we had the #1 piece of content because of him, #1 trending all 3 days on Instagram because he put a photo up. So we come back, what was the success? Instagram. That's great, but I hired you, and I was thrilled. But what happened on Snapchat, that's where the money was going, that's why I paid. But look what I did at Instagram. It's awesome, good job, buddy. But I have to go back to my boss and say, remember that bucket of money you gave me? I didn't do well, but I got you Instagram, so.
Well, that leads into how do you decide when it comes to sharing on third-party social networks, whether paid or more organic, how do you decide which platforms to invest in?
Is that me?
You go first.
I'm going to go
You go
again.
first,
You guys
Dave.
still want me talking? I'm hogging
Yeah,
this
you go.
panel. So how do I decide where I'm going to invest? So one is where the audience is. So again, PayPal, I think we're really unique. You don't think about PayPal until you use it. We never get a tweet that says, hey, really thanks for that transaction. Getting that money over to my mom was amazing. It was an incredible experience. Thanks, right?
Have any of you done that?
Anybody?
If
Yeah.
you haven't, maybe give
It would be
Dave a
great.
shout out on Twitter,
yeah.
thanking them for that
PayPal it.
transaction.
So in my world, Twitter and Facebook are customer service channels at the end of the day, right? That's where people are going for help. So I look at them as distribution. So I'm not really investing heavily on Twitter and Facebook. I'm investing in YouTube, Vine, working on Snapchat. Pinterest is really great for us. Those are the networks that I really look at. And then I take that same content and use Twitter and Facebook to push it out. Facebook gets me engagements, Twitter gets me reach. I've got this one beautiful slide.
Kip, video, that's a nice segue. You guys rely a lot on video, how-to videos to help consumers understand how to use your products, and there's a lot of advantages. Where do those videos live, and tell us a little bit about your how-to videos.
Yeah, we put a lot of them on YouTube. YouTube is the #2 search engine, and if you look at the metrics, you see that a lot of YouTube searches start with how to fill in the blank. And so that's got to be a space where you should be putting your how-to videos to really extend that reach. And then a lot of it lives on our site, and we do some things with our retailers. We work a lot with Lowe's and Depot and Walmart, and we work in partnership with them on a lot of those things. And so they use those how-to videos as well, because we know if people are successful using our products, they're going to come back, and then we're going to have repeat users. So it's really important for us to make sure that not only just the how-to videos to get people more engaged in the categories, but we know if they're using the products and using them successfully, they're going to have good results.
Heather, I always think of The Economist as sort of print and articles.
Yes.
Do videos play in your content?
They do actually. They play quite prominently, and we actually just launched Economist Films, which is a Facebook first kind of broadcast channel. So we actually create documentaries that go Facebook first. But we have to be really sure of making the right content for it. So we are on Facebook, we're on Pinterest, we're on Instagram. We're actually the fastest growing magazine in the US on Instagram, 209% in the last 3 months. And that's because we use our photo desk to put compelling photos up. So just as you'd put in the magazine, we have those high quality photos out there. And so I think because The Economist is looked at, but you're this print magazine and you look at the economy, but we don't. We look at factors that affect people's decisions. So we look at culture, we look at technology, we look at everything, and so those things actually play well in social. So we make sure that we keep we are a very witty brand, so we keep that wit. You don't think of us as wit, but we are very witty, very British. So we keep that wit, that tone of voice with us in our space, and very much rely on facts, because that's what we're known for. So that does really well on those platforms. We choose those platforms where we can have those conversations and tailor it accordingly. So, but video does play really highly in what we do.
Yeah, we look at too, it's just going to vary by brand. We have more than just a Scott's brand. So like our Miracle-Gro brand, we've been building up our profile on Pinterest. And when we went to do that, we were like, well, we don't have a lot of our own original photography, and then it's a space, got to have photography, you're going to be successful there. And so we worked with somebody called Joy Cho. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Joy. She's it's weird for a male who doesn't use Pinterest and who's a little bit older to say, but she's the #1 pinned person, or pinner, whatever the Pinterest vernacular is. But went with Joy. It was a partnership that worked, and she's just a fabulous content creator and a great voice and has a ton of followers, and was just able to amplify that message and get our board set up really quickly and start working in that space.
What was the goal? Was it pins, click-throughs on the Pinterest? I'm just curious.
Yeah, all of the above. So, well, reach is one. So, Joy has a huge audience, and and then the other thing, it was the volume of content that she could produce in a very short amount of time.
Do you know what's really interesting? Actually, I was talking to one of the women who does our social for our sponsored content, and she puts all of the videos and we kind of create these slideshows, and she puts them on SlideShare, and so she gets thousands of views on SlideShare versus hundreds on YouTube because there's an audience that's concentrated on wanting that kind of more business information. And so it was kind of, when she told that to me, I'm like, well, of course, but then I was surprised by it. But I thought, yes, that's a great place to get this distilled information and you can download it. So I'm like, of course, I would use that all the time, and I do, like as part of search. So that was kind of an interesting learning that I had. And I mean, we play really well on LinkedIn, obviously, but the SlideShare element was really interesting because that's where our audience is.
So this is everything we talked about is consumer focused. You're right. So when we're targeting merchants, it's SlideShare.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's through the roof. That LinkedIn Pulse section where you write the blogs is incredible. You can put anything up there and it does well. We'll take content we've had and repurpose it on there. And it's 3 weeks old, and it might even organically, so with no paid media behind it, do better than the original with paid. It's incredible.
For organic,
people don't think about it.
Yeah, exactly. And for organic, we've come to realize we call it the 4 C's. If it's about a country, a city, a company, or a citizen, people, it does really well. So faces do better than artwork. Like, it's about people want to, in kind of more of the business leader space, they actually want to look to their peers. They want to look to other companies. They want to be better, and they want to understand what's happening in their city, what's happening in their country, or in a place they want to grow. So by understanding that we use a hashtag that's a city or a country or around a company, and we do marginally better, like not marginally, we do hugely better. So like 150% better on a post just because we've added content that's about the city, country, citizen, or company.
So let's talk about, you've each shared with me some really fabulous examples that you came top of mind of things that you've done especially well with content. Can you talk a little bit about one of your success stories and why you think it really rises to the top in terms of memorability?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. I shared a story with you that we did this year. I mean, nothing was more popular than the Women's World Cup, right? I mean, those ladies were amazing. And there was, I don't know if you know, there was a big issue going on up there in Canada. They were playing on artificial turf. And the men never play on artificial turf. The men never would play on artificial turf. So there was a fairness story there. It's like, why are the women having to play on this where there's increase of injuries? They can't play the game the way they want to play the game. And we grabbed onto that story and said, we got to tell this story. And because we want people to play on grass, we're about grass. We love grass. And we started working with first Cindy LaRue, and we reached out to Vice because we've done some partnerships with them and creating content. And Vice said, you know what, we already did this story. There's not much there, but if you could get Abby to talk about it. Well, we went to Abby, and she's just amazing. And Abby just took it to a whole nother level, right? What we just talked about. And Abby was all about it, so we did some original content with Abby and started working with some influencer networks and getting that stuff out there. Because now you've got a story you can talk about from, women's rights, health, soccer, sports, and it just got picked up. Vice Sports then ran it. It ended up on ESPN. The story ended up turning into, because we were going to refurbish all these fields, and FIFA said, no, you're not doing it. So then the headlines were really like, Scots and FIFA are in a fight over grass fields. Like, this is fantastic. It just exploded. It turned like 400 million impressions over the whole story, and they never did refurbish the fields. But what we did is, as more people shared that story, and that we amplified that, we said, look, for every 100,000 shares, I can't remember exactly what it was, we would refurbish a field in the United States. And we ended up refurbishing 8 fields here in the United States and converted them from artificial turf to grass.
I think the best part of the story is how excited you got when they were in a fight.
So I guess the tweet there is, Scots likes grass. Okay. How about you, Dave?
So this happened, actually this one's timely this week. You guys probably didn't hear about this, but it was Back to the Future Day this week. I know, it wasn't in the news, you couldn't find it anywhere. So in Back to the Future 2, old Biff gets out of the taxi cab, puts his thumb down, pays, gets his receipt, goes on his way. PayPal, right? We have thumbprint, because I know you all know you can pay with your thumb, right? You put your thumb down and leave. So we can't afford Michael J. Fox or Christopher Lloyd, so I had the team track down, his name's Tommy. Well, a little known trivia, Tommy hates Back to the Future too. He wants nothing to do with the franchise. I should expand it. If you noticed, he didn't show up anywhere, right? So we wanted, because back in 85 or 87, when they didn't think, oh, you have to pay for the rights to use this image, right? Who knew all this technology would happen? Universal gave it to us for free. All you gotta do is hit the DVD, and you can pay with PayPal. This is wonderful, I'm thinking. So we reached out to Tommy, talked to him. Tommy wants $250,000 for a 7-second clip. Tommy wants to make it really, really hard. So after some back and forth, we get Tommy down to a reasonable number, really, really, like not even 2 digits before the comma, right? Get the clip out, we push it out, because it's organic in a way, right? We're not forcing PayPal into the story, right? You guys see what USA Today did as well? They had the newspaper because they were already part of it. Pepsi was already part of it. Nike with the shoes. That's how we felt. Put it up there, incredible numbers. Just the video views alone on Facebook were well over 250,000, right? People were talking about us positively. Oh, I never thought of that. PayPal was there. No one was asking for their money back or putting holds on the accounts. It was incredible. Sorry, customer service, if you're listening or PR. It worked really well. We got the shares and the content's still up there, and it's still doing well. So take all the work ahead of time is a pain in the neck, but the reward and the wins are amazing. So that was a really good
example.
one.
So how are you measuring sentiment?
Sentiment. So originally I did when I first started measure sentiment. So we would work with creators to get that, hey, positive comments. And then when something would happen where maybe there was a hiccup in the PayPal system or something I can't control, and all that work getting the sentiment down would go back up again. So we changed the algorithm, and at the end of the day, I'm looking at people that are saying nice things. I'm keeping it very simple, right? And maybe coming to the brand's defense. That happens as well, where someone else will hate on PayPal, and then they'll say, you know what, I've been with PayPal for 15 years, I've had no problems. So that content helps start that positive sentiment, feel good. And so people saying nice things. I like to keep things really simple. That is how I measure sentiment.
Cool. Heather?
My example is probably not, I wish I could have a Back to the Future Day example actually, because that would be awesome. So we did write about it, but I can't give an example. I think one of the things, I guess one of the kind of big shifts we had is trying to look at, let's say, I'm just gonna go with Twitter. So on Twitter, we're really, we don't break the news at The Economist. So it's like, how do we become part of these conversations? And so we started to look at our archives and pull out content to help people understand what's happening now in relation to what happened in the past. So by doing that, we went from 1 million reach per month to 4.5 million per month, because we started to become part of the conversation in a way that actually helped people understand the issues that were happening versus just trying to just jump on that. Here's the headline. We're not a reporter, we're a journalist. So here is the deep information, here's the deep data. And so we're finding the success, but also in social by pulling out that kind of interesting fact from that deep data. So for instance, we did a kind of a scatter graph all about correlating, this is getting a little deep, sorry, correlating road fatalities, and how many cars were driven in a country. And the team found that Italy had the most cars on the road and the least deaths. And you think, oh, Italian crazy drivers, and they're like, no, we're gonna pull that out and have that little kind of fun factoid, which seems odd, but a little fun factoid because it seems like counter to what we believe. But then they started to put that in relation to things that were going on in the news, and this kind of pulling out these data points to pull them back to like, we understand this deep data, we're gonna make this interesting and kind of relevant to you and surprising. And so I think for us, just having that shift, it's not a specific like one moment example, but actually just the way of like rethinking of how we can be part of a conversation that we couldn't have been part of before.
So you're pretty much taking existing copy and repurposing bits of it on social.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that leads us to recycled and repurposed content. It's done more increasingly. You can't, look at online without stories about how to repurpose, when to repurpose. Dave, are you repurposing content, and what's the benefit to PayPal?
Yeah. So when we work with creators, At the end of the day, we have the right, we own that content. So The Walking Dead premiered recently, and I wanted PayPal to be part of that story. How the heck do I get PayPal involved with The Walking Dead? So going through the archives, I found a zombie video. So we had hired a creator before I even started to do a 60-second PayPal zombie video. I don't know why. I have no idea. If I had the video to trade to, but this long and short of it is they're running away from the zombie, 2 people. One guy has PayPal, one doesn't. He can pay for things faster. Zombies eat the other guy who's going for his wallet, trying to pay for gas, hop in the car. So when The Walking Dead premiered, we put it up online. This content that had already been up there 2-3 years ago. Hashtag Walking Dead. Need I say any more? Through the roof. Reach, engagement, impressions. Oh my God, PayPal, this is so funny. And by the way, it was a bad video. Bad, I'm just saying. Classic zombie movie feel, right? I'm sorry? Oh.
Did you just happen to remember that this existed, or do you have an archive? Are there people helping you, maybe find some of that old content?
So by archive, I mean Box or Dropbox. And by remembering, yes, I happen to remember, I don't know why, I happen to remember there was a zombie video. I do remember a little bit why. It's because I really wanted to push it out, and brand guidelines were, this is not on brand, this isn't right. And as people shifted through, we had people that were more open to it, did a few quick digital updates to the logos and things like that. And it was actually the top organic, everybody knows when we say organic, right? No paid behind it. Piece of content we've had in over a year.
Wow.
So, right, it's because we hit a niche community, kind of what we talk about when we work with creators, right? We want your community. So these people that like zombies and sci-fi, really niche, and they got behind it, loved it because it was so bad that it's good, and did it. So when you're bored, it's still on our Facebook page or YouTube page somewhere, and you can see how good bad it is. But yes, cost me nothing at the end of the day. That's the bottom line, right?
Other than some editing costs,
right? I
yeah.
took whatever we paid for 3 years ago, and the cost for me to on a Sunday after football to put it on right behind the premiere, and I won my week that week.
That's great.
In football.
That's great.
Kip, how is Scott's repurposing and why and when?
We don't
where?
repurpose a lot of content from the standpoint, if it mentions any products or anything, I mean, legal's could put the kibosh on it because, packaging gets updated stuff. It just, for legal reasons, if there's claims in there, we just can't do it. But I guess I think of repurposing a little bit different. Like you see the image behind us here. This was at a photo shoot that we did. We refurbished this backyard in San Francisco. We found a young millennial couple, and their yard was terrible. They didn't even know what kind of grass was in it and stuff, and we just redid the entire thing, built this fire pit for them and stuff. That fire is actually fake. Isaiah put that in there. But
I just noticed the fire was
Yeah.
like,
It's a really good
so is this
fire.
a video or an image?
yeah,
This is awesome.
It's an image.
It's a
Somebody at
it's a
Isaiah brought it to
cinemagraph,
life. But
yeah.
Way to go, Isaiah. Yeah.
Yeah. But when we're out doing shoots like that, we're doing how-to videos. There's a whole video series on refurbishing that yard. Then, of course, we're going to get photography. And we have, with our editorial calendar throughout the year, we're thinking about other shots we're going to need. So that team is thinking, when we're in San Francisco, we'll do this with the mulch, and we'll get some how-to videos around that. So this one photo shoot resulted in probably 50, 60 pieces of content total, and probably hundreds of images.
So you also talked about your paid traditional advertising, television, and with sports. Are you repurposing any of your paid television spots?
Well, then of course that stuff's hard because you've got actors' rights and stuff, right? So if you've only paid for a year's worth of that license, the SAG fees and stuff, you can't repurpose that and use it again. In fact, we've got some ads on our site now, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Scott for Scott campaign, the Scottish guy who tells you to feed your lawn. That's ending, and so we've had to pull all that down. So we run into that a lot, where you say, okay, the rights for that content is no longer valid, so we got to take it down.
So a lot of
And
great
those people will come after you. I mean, the day that license expired, you will get a letter saying you now owe us or cease and desist, right?
They want to get
So-
paid.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, back to Biff, we could not put that video that he did 25 years ago or 30 years ago on until the 21st, and then we only have the rights for 30 days. It can only be online because we wanted to put it in Times Square, and it was a whole,
Yeah.
So we have a program that we do for GE called GE Look Ahead. And it's actually all about the future. So it's about the future and the market conditions of now and the technology and the innovation that it takes to get to the future. So obviously, because it's about the future, there are pieces of content that we repurpose and bring back to life. But I think what's really key is that by we find this content that's relevant to maybe a moment that's happening now, or an innovation or some technology, but we always have to go back and research and see, well, are the conditions the same? Has there been any changes in the technology? So we don't just say, bring to life another piece of content just because we think it's relevant. We actually have to ensure that all the elements in it are relevant. So I would say that we recycle or we reuse the content, but we also refresh the content to make it timely and make it related to now, because that's what people want to see. So I think that we always look at how we can repurpose it or how we can make a connection, but it is about making it as relevant as possible.
Kip, you also talked about shortening some of those how-to videos for different mediums.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we might look into things where we might do it as a Vine type of stuff. And then like this one, it's like I said, it's a whole series and it can get really long. Like the first part can talk, they're setting it up, we're here with this couple, we're in San Francisco, and that's like 3 minutes long. And then there may be a piece of this where we're just giving a tip. When you've got this area of your yard, so to speak, here's how you might want to approach it. And those are really good because, you know, we had the session before on the shareable, snackable stuff. It's hard for someone to sit through a 3-minute video online or even share that, right? But you grab something that's 15 seconds and it's packed with some really good information and tips, that's something you're going to see people share and on whether it's on their blog or with their audience and their social networks.
And I think we have to be aware, like we will change things for Facebook, for instance. So if there's an Economist video that we had that features our logo at the beginning, we'd have to cut that because essentially, you know, Facebook continues to change their algorithms, continues to change what actually works. So one of our people internally went and sat down with Facebook and said, okay, what do we have to do to make this stuff work? They're like, the first 3 seconds are the most important, highly visual. You have to make sure that video doesn't work with sound. So make sure that there's text on it. It has to be a maximum of 1.5 minutes. That's it. And then it has to have really those compelling and strong images. And if you don't have those things, it's gonna sink. So suddenly we had like a video that normally performed well it starts with the Economist logo, that kind of lovely little sizzle teaser thing. That's 3 seconds. And guess what? No one's gonna click on it. So if we ensure that we have those bold visuals right at the beginning, the compelling hook in the first 3 seconds, then we can get people's attention. So it's about making sure that content sings in that way.
So we should do the whole thing like top 10 things that you can do at IZEA Fest. Number 7 blew my mind, right? And then I gotta click,
clickbait.
right?
That's
I gotta
clickbait.
click, yeah.
Well, the thing is that though, if you don't come out back on that promise at number 7, then people will bounce. So you have to ensure that's compelling but true. Compelling but true.
Does anyone care to share an example that didn't work so well that you want to share, and why didn't it work? And lessons learned?
I won't give any specific examples because there's too many, but what I tell my team is don't be afraid to fail because failure is an opportunity to learn, right? And so one of the things I'd encourage everybody in this room is you know, the things we talk about is fail fast. Like fail fast, optimize, learn from that, and then you find what works, you put more money behind it. And what doesn't work, stop doing it.
And I'm not going to give a very specific answer either. I'm sure there's lots of things, but I think it's always you're learning and refining. But if we put a sponsor logo on a social image or anything, people hate it. So we don't. Like they just don't respond well to it. So it's like a bold image, a question, a fact. That's what gets them. So when we try to do other combinations of things, it doesn't work. So we go back to our, you know, the people wanting us to create sponsored content and say, we're making this for you, but these are the things that work the best for our audience. And it's going to be, you know, no sponsor logos. I'm sorry. There's going to be, it's going to have to be fact-driven. It's going to have to be, you know, in our sense of humor, in our voice. And sometimes our clients are more conservative than the Economists are, which may be surprising to some of you, but it's true. So I think we have to, you know, when you know these things and ensuring that the brands that we work with really understand that, then because we want them to be successful, because we want success. So I think those are the things that we have to, that's where the pushback comes, but that's kind of the lessons that we learn is like, you know, when we kind of fold a bit and say, yeah, we'll put that logo on, it just doesn't perform. So that's one of the things that we've learned.
I'll give you one more real quick, just about taking risks. You know, when the Supreme Court decision came down about the gay marriage, we had created a photo of some roses, rainbow colored, and we were going to put it up with the hashtag Love Wins. And we thought about it. We said, dude, as a brand, do we really want to talk about this? And when it came to me, I said, you know what? This started in our backyard. We're in Ohio. This started in Cincinnati. So we have that right? And so we can, and as a brand, yeah, we want to take a stance on this and talk about it, get a conversation going. We put it out there. I'd say the feedback was 50-50. If people say, I'm never buying your products again, blah, blah, blah. And you have other people saying, kudos to you guys for taking a stance on that. So you got to take risks, man. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, so we did the same thing around the gay marriage, which was, up until Back to the Future, was our top performing content, organic again. And the conversation for us was, as a company, we are for it. We have no problem with it. We don't, if 80% hate on us, too bad. That's not what we stand for, right? We're for it. It's the way it is. And yeah, the content did really well. And our community, I don't think there was any backlash at all for us. So it worked really well.
So probably more for the brands here, there's evergreen content or content that you need to put out, educational pieces, how-to videos, but then there are also opportunistic things like the gay marriage. Where do your budgets come from, and how do you decide where to spend your time and effort, and which opportunistic things will you jump on?
So for me, I think my budget lives in comms for the most part.
Okay.
And so they fund it, so it's whatever I do has to support their messaging. Then there is marketing. They'll come, so I'm like a service for them. They come to me and say, hey, we have X amount, here's a bucket of money. What can you do for me? And then we'll come up with an idea and go back. From that comms is the always on, which is the opportunistic content, as you say. So I'm already looking for milestones. Like Star Wars is a great one, right? December 17th, the movie comes out, or 18th. And how can we get behind that? Or Super Bowl is another one where, how do we get behind the Super Bowl where you can't say Super Bowl, can't say the big game, can't use the image? It goes on and on and on. And to your earlier question, that was a big miss for us 2 years ago when we tried to get involved. You just couldn't tell it was with the Super Bowl, at the end of the day, and being forced to do it internally.
Evergreen content is, first of all, I look at it as what you need to be successful with search, right? So when you're optimizing your properties for search, and even nowadays optimizing your social platforms, the evergreen content is something that needs to work hard in that space. So when you say evergreen content, I'm thinking of the content my team produces to make sure that our sites are successful with SEO.
Yeah, I think most of, we make sure for our digital properties, we have to sometimes tweak headlines, because if we're actually print first and then digital, but then we have to look at our headlines and ensure that they are SEO friendly, so we get the search that we need and the pieces of content that are open for people to consume. I think in terms of the idea of budget, you were talking about budget, where it comes from. We work with all sorts of groups. So we work with brands directly, but then we work with marketing teams, we work with PR teams, and we also work with people with the media budget. So normally people would traditionally buy your banner ads. And so everyone's scrambling to be the one who owns the content. And so you find that there's often you have to be really aware of where it's coming from, because they're going to have very different ideas of what content is and ideas of what they can do with it. So sometimes it's kind of an education and working with teams to be like, okay, I understand that you're used to banner ads and used to content just being like a value add, but content is actually the thing that has the value and the thing that needs to have to be paid for, because it needs to be good. It needs to be and relevant to you, and we need to make this thing awesome and put it within these ad units so that it actually performs well, so you get that engagement. So our numbers are coming from, our kind of money is coming from all those places, and I think it's been really interesting to see, now that I'm in the publisher side, to see that battle for who owns it, who owns that space, and I think they all do, and they all have to play together in it.
Great. To wrap it up, I think we're very close out of time. In 5 words or less, what's one thing, out of many things you could possibly say, that you'd like the audience here to be thinking about when it comes to return on content?
Me first?
I'm going to start, actually. I said, keep true to your brand. Number 1, your brand is your butter. Keep true to your brand.
Kip,
Don't be average, take risks.
we just heard don't be average. Or
That's fine. Content that doesn't suck.
there you have it. Content that doesn't suck. Thank you, panelists.